Hey everybody, today we are talking about content. Now, if you have read my books, The 1 Hour Content Plan, The Profitable Content System, or if you are a user of the Create Blog and Editorial Planner, then you guys are pros already. You should know how this goes. All right, but for the rest of you who are still getting accustomed to being intentional with the content you create, you're still trying to merge content creation with your launches or your business goals, then you're going to get a lot out of today's training. So for me, when it comes to content marketing, there are a few pillars that I always talk about. The first one is your content GPS, all right? Getting very clear about your content playing field. What are your categories? What do you want to be known for? And how is your content different? How exactly are you adding to the literature that's already out there? That's the first one. Okay, the second one is to get accustomed to a style of campaign planning. So you're not creating, you want to create content in terms of campaigns and themes, right? This allows people to start to view you as someone that they can trust. It allows you to build content expert association quicker as well. So imagine every single week you're creating content on a different topic versus you creating content over an entire month on one main topic. So you're diving in deep rather than spreading yourself thin or being narrow. So when you do it in this way, it's easier for people to associate you with that topic and easier for people to identify you as someone that they can reach out to for help in this one area. All right, so that's the second pillar. Now, the third pillar is creating content around your products and services and using the customer journey to help you do that. And in today's training, I'll also walk you through an example of how you can bring the concepts that you learned here and how can you bring this into the practical example of doing a launch. So I shared this in a masterclass. It's been some time since I did that earlier training. So today will kind of like be a recap, but I wanted to share that sort of like a case study with you of how you can apply that to your launches. So if you're ready for today's training, let's dive right in. Okay, let's talk about successful content creation. A very quick recap of what we did yesterday. I shared this diagram with you and encouraged you to start piecing your year. So this could mean that perhaps you are going to be launching a new offer in January, all right? It could be that you are maybe relaunching an existing offer in March. Maybe you have some kind of an affiliate promotion in May, all right? So this is how you would be piecing your year. So every month you have something major that you are working on. Now, this is very important because it's going to help us in knowing what content to create for that particular month. Okay, so we want to create content and marketing assets to support your marketing calendar, which is why we did this exercise where we were piecing our year together prior to this particular training. Okay, so it's important to know what are these blocks so that we would know the content to support those very blocks. Now, just want to get a couple of things out of the way. This is something that I've said so many times. The biggest myth out there when it comes to content is that content is for nurturing and not for selling. So they see it as being two silo things, nurture and selling. People see it as two very different things. But for me, I see it as being one thing. And if you do it right, it can be merged very seamlessly and very effectively. So content can and should sell. So how exactly do you do this? That's what we're going to be talking about in this training. So you want to say that, my business goal is to increase sales of this particular course by 30%. And then you want to think, okay, so if that's my goal, how can content help me achieve that goal? That's the kind of relationship we want content and sales to have. So how do we create this kind of a relationship? We can create this kind of a relationship when we think about how our content can handhold our customers or readers through their journey. Okay, now what exactly is this journey or customer journey that we are talking about? Okay, the customer or the buyer's journey is the process that your audience go through to become aware of, consider, evaluate, and then decide to purchase your offers or to work with you. So there are 3 specific phases that they go through. All right, they go through the awareness phase, the consideration and evaluation phase, and then finally the decision phase. So these are the 3 phases that everyone goes through. So how do you know someone is ready to do business with you? They are nudged along through these steps. They recognize they have a problem. They have a desire for the after of how things could be if they solve that problem. They discover that solutions exist, right? They understand what they should consider when choosing a solution. And then they're convinced that your solution is the right one. So think about yourself in any kind of a buying situation, whether you're buying skin cream, whether you are buying any kind of a program, okay, a digital program, it could be anything for that matter. And you would realize that, hey, you know, these are the steps that I go through as well. So these are the steps your audience would take as well before they are convinced that they should be working with you or that they should buy your product or service. Okay, so you as a content creator, it is your responsibility to address questions that your ideal buyer or client will have at each of these different phases so that you can inch them to the next. Because if you're not going to adequately answer their questions at the different stages, then it's very hard for them to inch further down. Okay, and if they are not going to move down in their customer journey, then it's difficult for them to reach the decision phase where they're ready to do business with you. Okay, so you want to get them to a stage where they're ready to hire you or to buy from you. All right. Okay, so the key thing to remember here is not everyone has the same level of awareness about the topic of your offer. People at different stages in the journey have different questions. So these are the things that you need to remember. So there might be people coming to you and joining your list who are well into the maybe evaluation and consideration phase. Okay, but there may also be people who are very early on in the customer journey, all right, who are just kind of becoming aware of the pain point, joining your email list as well. So you need to create content to support both of these different types of people at different stages in their journey. So this is a diagram that I've shared many times before. This is Eugene Squat's customer awareness spectrum. So it says that people go through these different stages. People are problem unaware if they haven't yet identified their pain point or problem. They then move on to being problem aware, solution unaware, solution aware, and then most aware. I speak about this in the Profitable Content System, my book on Amazon. All right, now this mirrors directly with the 3 different stages that I spoke to you about just now. Okay, the awareness, the consideration, and the decision. So it kind of overlaps. So I'm sharing both of these diagrams because some people might be more comfortable with using the beginner, intermediate, advanced, or awareness, consideration, decision. Others might be more comfortable using the customer awareness spectrum, going through problem unaware, problem aware to most aware. So for me personally, I prefer using the other diagram and using that to plot out my content pieces. But you do you and pick whichever you're comfortable with, whichever comes easier for you. At each of these different stages, the type of questions that people will ask will be different as well. So typically in the awareness phase, in the beginner stage, people have why, what type of questions. Okay, why should we do this? Or what is the most important thing that I need to know with this topic, right? Why, what questions. But once you have their attention, right? Once they are aware of their pain points, then they start really looking for how to solve those pain points. So this is where the consideration or intermediate stage kicks in. Okay, you want to bring interest in the solution here. And most of the times, the type of questions that people have at this stage have to do with the how. How do I maybe create an email sequence, or how do I do intermittent fasting, or how do I whatever. All right, so these are the types of questions that people will have in the consideration and intermediate stage. And finally, in the desire stage, okay, this is where you perhaps want to share case studies. You could perhaps want to share the type of results that they can have if they implement your solution. Okay, so for every type of offer that you have, whether it's a new offer, whether it's an offer that you're relaunching, or it's something that is brand new, okay, you want to think about, okay, what core problem does this offer solve? And what does someone need to know before being ready to buy? You need to answer those two questions, and then think about how this translates into the different types of content pieces that you can create. So just to share an example with you, I have an email course, the Profitable Email System. Okay, so that takes someone from sub-zero to building an email list that results in sales. So what does someone need to know before being ready to buy? Obviously, some of the things are that I need to make aware is that the size of your list does not matter. Okay, and that there are perhaps no number, there's no such thing that you need 7 emails in your email sequence. Okay, so these are a couple of myths or mistakes that people have. So I need to be able to break all of these down before someone is able to consider my solution or look at it with a fresh eye, instead of having all of these false beliefs shrouding their ability to make that decision. So with this information in mind, now you can go ahead and create content that supports each of your different projects. Okay, so I want you to consider each project as a campaign. So if, let's say, you are relaunching a particular product of yours, then that forms a campaign. If, let's say, you are creating a new offer, that forms a campaign. So everything that you're creating as part of this campaign, whether it's your blog posts, it's your videos or your lives or your ads, to the specific launch vehicles, what exactly are you using to kickstart this launch, whether it's a webinar or a workshop series or a challenge, okay, right up to the sales or product pitch, there is a single message behind each of these campaigns. So if, let's say, you are relaunching a product, one of your offers in March, that becomes your launch campaign, and everything that you're creating perhaps in March, all right, leading up to the launch is going to be tied to this goal, all right, and that goal is for you to successfully sell perhaps this number of this particular offer. So the purpose of every single piece of content you create is to support that particular end goal. All right, now how do you execute this particular campaign? So we're speaking about a launch campaign. How exactly do you execute that? I like to think about it along these lines. Okay, attract, capture, engage, and convert. So when it comes to attract, who in your audience do you want to attract for this particular launch campaign? How are you going to get your content in front of them? What channels are you going to use? Okay, then how are you going to get people on your email list to run a successful campaign? If you already have an email list, how are you going to get those people interested in this campaign or interested in perhaps signing up for your launch vehicle, whether it's a webinar or a challenge? All right, how are you going to capture their attention? What will you use to engage them? Will you be using a launch vehicle to help with engagement or conversion? So would you be using webinar or a challenge or a workshop series? It's not a must to use that. I'm a huge fan of under the radar email only launches. Okay, but it's useful to know whether you're going to use that to engage people. And then what will your sales process be like? What are the specific things are you going to do to get that sale? Okay, apart from the sales emails, is there anything else that you're going to be doing? So I like to look at it in this way. So if you are using the Create Blog and Editorial Planner every single month, all right, there is a space for you to actually take note of what are the different marketing assets you would need for this launch. And there are prompts in there to help you make decisions on what type of content to create to get people involved and interested in this particular campaign. Okay, so the key thing is to reverse engineer your content. So if your end goal is a sale, then think about, okay, what content, what marketing assets do I need? If your end goal is not a pitch, but you're just doing a campaign for brand authority or brand awareness, you want to be known for something, then okay, what content or marketing assets would you need? Now, I've done both. When I was starting out, I had nothing for sale, but I created a campaign specifically to be known for the topic of email marketing. I wanted to build authority in this particular area because I was brand new. So every single thing I did over 3 months, it was like a 3-month long campaign, was to create marketing assets, whether it's landing pages or content or guest posts or pitches. Everything that I did was steered towards helping me fulfill the goal of this particular authority building campaign. So don't think that you can only use the system if you have a sale. You can absolutely use the system even if you have nothing for sale. Okay, so a quick recap. You need to figure out what content you need for this particular campaign. You might already have created different pieces of content for different stages of the customer journey. All right. And if you have, you can reuse some of these content pieces. You do not need to create every single piece of content from scratch. So what I encourage you to do is locate gaps in the content for different stages in the journey. Okay, or if there are new questions that people have been asking about or new pain points that have emerged, then do you need to then create new pieces of content to address these new questions and new pain points? Okay, so don't think that you absolutely need to create content every single time. You can if you want to, but you can also reuse content pieces. The key thing here is to always do a content gap analysis. Where is your content lacking? And then think about how you can fit that need in for every single campaign that you launch and create. Okay, planning like this will tell you what content you need to prepare to prime your audience to be ready to hire you or buy from you. Okay, so let's have a practical example of how this would relate to a launch. Okay, so let's say you're doing a launch. Let me walk you through how exactly whatever we spoke about would come into play. The key thing here before any launch is to figure out whether you have content expert association with the topic of your offer. Okay, so what does content expert association mean? Does your audience trust you with that topic? Have they heard you speak about this topic? Are they familiar with your teachings on this topic? If you're saying yes, then you have content expert association. If you're saying no, then well, this is probably a new topic that you need to build content expert association on, and that's fine as well. When I first launched the 1 hour content plan, I was not known for content marketing. I was more the email person, so I had to do things in a little bit of a different way to build content expert association before I launched that book, and you can absolutely do the same. So if you do have content expert association for your launch, okay, this is what I teach in Product in 7 as well. You create one download, okay, so any kind of opt-in incentive, one download, and then 3 to 4 emails, okay, pre-launch emails. I like to call them anticipation building emails. Okay, if you don't have content expert association, then you probably have to do a little bit more. You still create one download. You create 2 to 3 content pieces related to the topic of the offer, and you do 5 to 7 pre-launch emails or anticipation builders. Okay, slightly longer because you don't have content expert association and you need to build it up. Okay, now how does this come together in a launch timeline? Let's take it step by step. I know this diagram can be a little bit much to take in. So phase 0 obviously is the planning phase. Let's skip that. Phase 1, so weeks 1 to 3, this is where you're doing your pre-launch. Okay, so depending on whether you've got content expert association or not, okay, the amount that you would have to prepare would differ. So whether it's one download, 3 to 4 emails, or one download, 2 to 3 content pieces, 5 to 7 emails. Now let me just take a step back and talk about these content pieces. What exactly are you going to be, how are you going to be choosing these 2 to 3 content pieces? Okay, let me swap back to this slide over here. So we spoke about these 3 different phases. So it would be great if you can create a content piece at each of these different stages. So the first piece would be to bring attention to the problem. The second piece would be to bring interest in the solution. And the third piece would be to bring desire for your solution. So if you do it in this way for your pre-launch, let me just swap back to that slide. Your audience are going to be led through their journey and they're going to be primed when you open cart. Okay, so that's phase 1. So if you're doing any kind of an early bird or a VIP launch, then that would come right after pre-launch. Okay, now week 4, this is where you are having your launch vehicle. So your launch vehicle comes into play. So if you have a webinar or a challenge or a workshop or a video series, that happens in week 4. Okay, now phase 2, 3, 4, this is your email phase, all right, your sales email. So in phase 2, you're going to be revealing the offer. In phases 3 and 4, you are going to be removing any kind of objections, answering questions that they have, sharing testimonials, and then finally closing cart. Okay, phase 5, this is onboarding, which we'll not focus on here. Okay, so this is the system that I teach in Product in 7. And I wanted to share this with you so that you see how these specific content marketing concepts that I shared with you feeds into your launch timeline as well. Now for phases 3 and 4, specifically your sales email deck, if there are content ideas that you've outlined for each of the different phases in the customer journey, okay, you can actually take that and use them in your emails as well. So obviously don't go and write like a 1,500 word blog post within your emails, but you can take the gist of the idea, that content idea, and then use them in phases 3 and 4. Okay, now what if you don't have offers? Like I said, if you don't have offers, you can still use the system that I spoke about. Okay, how exactly do you execute on that campaign? Think about attract, think about capture, and then convert. Okay, you want to think about each of these, but then you can use it for brand awareness or authority building campaigns. Even if you have affiliate offers, it's not your offer, it's someone else's, you can still use the same process to build out and execute your campaign. And when you do it in that way, chances of you having higher conversion rates, better engagement is highly likely. Okay, so your goal for today is to plan your content pieces for Q1 and your Q2 projects. So if you have specific offers that you are launching or relaunching, okay, or creating for the first time, I would love for you to go and take a look at that diagram that I shared with you. So outline the core problem that your offer solves. What does someone need to know before they are ready to buy? And then brainstorm ideas for each of the different phases. So the awareness phase, the consideration and evaluation phase, and the decision phase. Then I want you to flesh out a campaign that you plan to execute in Jan. Okay, in January, if there is one campaign that you have for that month, then flesh out just one campaign that you plan to execute in Jan. So don't do the entire thing for all 6 months. It can be a little bit overwhelming. Just focus on Jan, okay, and see whether you can flesh it out. Think about, okay, what are the marketing assets I need? What landing pages do I need? What emails do I need? Flesh it out in that way. That's what I mean by fleshing it out. If you want to dive deeper into this style of content planning, I do talk about it in the Profitable Content System, my book on Amazon, where I share with you examples and how different business models would be able to apply this style of planning. Okay, basically break it down. How would they break it down into each of these different phases in the customer journey? Obviously, I share this in the Create blog and editorial planner as well. So go and check those out. Let me stop the share right now. So for tomorrow's training, we'll be specifically talking about irresistible offers. All right, and I'll be sharing with you my framework or process of taking something from idea to launch. Okay, and hopefully you would be able to take that framework as well if you find it useful and apply it to your own idea to launch kind of journey. So I'll see you in tomorrow's training. If you've got questions, remember you can always drop them in the group.